Hi all, it's Palest Blue, but you guys can call me Harry. And today I'm just going to talk about a racism debate that's been going on in the community recently. A guy who I subscribe to of late, obviously Jesus, he used the N-word, the word nigger, in some of his commentaries, and he's been called out for that by other commentators, both those who feel offended and those who don't necessarily feel personally offended but have a problem with what he said. And some have defended him. He certainly stepped back into the ring to defend himself, and others have joined and tag teamed, and it's become quite the melange of opinions and drama. I don't really want to engage necessarily with the rights and wrongs, but I want to engage with a problem that discussing race is really fraught with, no matter which side of the debate you're on. Really something that's difficult with the debate as a whole, and something you have to bear in mind, and something that in fact I feel can overturn the entire debate and moves us on to kind of fresh ground when it comes to discussing the matter. Race is for me an arbitrary classification. It's not inherent, it's not present in any gene or any fibre of being. Everyone has different skin colours. I mean, there are a variety of shades between white and black. The question is, of course, where do you draw the line? You know, when does someone start to become considered in the black racial category, and when does someone start to be considered in the white racial category? Because the bottom line is, you can't ever draw those categories without making some sort of arbitrary line. You've got to choose that certain hue where you say, right, on this side, this colour and darker, we consider this person black, and this colour and lighter, we consider this person white, or all the other kind of racial categorizations that go down. They're all entirely arbitrary, and in fact, the racism argument depends on the fact that race is something inherent. It argues that you're born with a race, and in fact, when you fill out a load of political forms, as I'm sure you'll come to do throughout your lives if you've not encountered them already, you're forced to put down what race you are. I have to make a decision between white British, black British, white from elsewhere, white European, black, all these different kind of, Asian, for example, all these different races. You have to make that a decision when you kind of tick the box, say which one you are. But the point is, this is all arbitrary. Even the notion of kind of country, white British, well, Britain is an island, but it's only something we've kind of marked off ourselves. The British Isles is something that's been determined by history, something that's been determined by humans. When the world was created, it didn't say, right, this is the British Isles. There's no kind of supreme being, certainly in my belief, that's ever gone and said, right, so we're going to mark the boundary between France and Germany here, because humans have altered that boundary over time, and in fact, even that boundary is quite indistinct nowadays, and it can move as freely as anything else. It's entirely arbitrary. And if you're ever going to judge someone by his or her skin colour, then you have to take into account that skin colour changes with such things as you can have surgery to change your skin colour. It changes with the sun. It changes with how much exposure you have to the sun. So say if you're right on the boundary between this arbitrary boundary someone out there has set between black and everything else that's not considered black, for example, and suddenly, you spend some time in the sun, your skin slightly darkens, and suddenly you move into the black category. Now, of course, nothing inherent in you has changed there. It's really just because of that arbitrary limit and that misguided perception that skin colour reflects something inherent in you, some sort of character quality inherent in you. You've currently been miscategorised, and you've been, victim of an injustice. The bottom line is that in nature, race is entirely non-existent. It's only something that humans have created to justify some sort of action. And for that reason, racism is entirely wrong and entirely unjustifiable. As for obviously Jesus using the word nigger, and returning to that debate, well, the pragmatic approach, of course, would be not to use the word at all. And obviously Jesus has stressed several times in his tweets and his other videos that he likes to take a pragmatic approach. So pragmatically, of course, you wouldn't use the word, because of its potential. You have to understand that another thing that's arbitrary is a word's meaning. This is something I've discussed in the past, and it's really up to the person who's interpreting any given speech act to decide what a word's meaning is. But if we're looking at this from a pragmatic approach, and we take the approach, not necessarily one that I agree with, but we take the approach that the author has some sort of ability, the author of any given sentence has some sort of ability to delimit meaning and kind of mark off an interpretation, at least limit what can be understood, then you have to be very careful when using the word nigger. I personally think it perpetuates racism. I personally think that it keeps this kind of the race myth, as I call it, kind of this myth that there is anything inherent in us that gives us race. Saying the word nigger actually keeps that myth alive, and it's really just kind of it's breeding that falsehood, and it's breeding that misconception. And the race myth undergoes reproduction, intense reproduction, until it results inevitably in a form of racism. Thanks a lot for listening, guys, and I'll see you later.